Inject freedom into every crack in the wall of tyranny. This is Thinking Liberty. It's Tuesday, July 26, 2011, and we're live on thinkingliberty.net
How are you injecting liberty into the walls?
with a caulk gun.
See, I certainly didn't expect that, but I appreciate the reference to cracks. So there you go. So,
I do love me some crack. As far as injecting stuff into the walls, though, that makes me think of when you do like structural rehabs on old stone buildings. You actually hammer drill holes into the walls and you shoot a slurry in there and actually strengthen them up with new cement.
But see, if you injected water in there,
Then
and
they would
you
fall
make
down
it
sooner.
Freeze, exactly. So freedom is water. You have to be the water, man.
So freedom is not having stone walls anymore.
Sure.
Sure.
As long as they're walls of tyranny.
Is this like crazy post-apocalyptic freedom where we all forget how to farm and build things and it goes nuts?
Sure, if that's what you're into.
That's my personal favorite.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So we're live on
Sorry,
thinkingliberty.net. Thank you for listening. We've got the chat room there. And
That's what it's
they're
called,
chatting.
right?
It's chat. It's
If somebody
chatting.
wanted to get into that hopping chat room, how would they do it?
They would go to thinkingliberty.net while we're doing our live broadcast from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. There's a chat link on the sidebar. There are other means to contact us as well. Some live, some not so live, but we'll get them all. So,
Very cool.
free. So we have a special guest tonight, Kevin Carson, going to be on around 8:25 or so.
Looking forward to that.
Should be very interesting. I guess this is about like the first interview he's done other than one that was on a very specific topic. So
You've got
okay, that's a good way of putting it.
you've got more show notes than I think you ever have
Show
before,
notes.
by the way, today. You've got like a big set of questions there for them.
yeah, well, we solicited questions on Facebook.
Did you get
and
arrested
email.
for that?
Yes, for soliciting. I got arrested by the love police.
So
We're not going to go there. But so we have some questions. We're going to ask them. We have our own questions. It'll be good.
we do have
Good
our own
stuff.
questions.
We have questions.
I want you
We
to
always
know,
have questions.
I saw that we had like the big name guest and all the people said they were going to come and listen. So I did a lot of exhaustive show prep. I actually went today and I looked up, libertarian organizational theory. And I actually brought that up and I read every single word in the table of contents. I
Wow.
was very proud of myself.
So-
and then I watched Battlestar Galactica. So that was my show prep.
So you know what it contains.
Yes, I know what the names of all the chapters are.
So how does that relate to Battlestar Galactica now?
Actually, I've been quite impressed with Battlestar Galactica.
Which one?
I'm watching the one that was released 2003,
Okay.
so the latest remake, and I watched all of season 1, and I'm halfway through season 2, and I started yesterday. This is what it's like to not have a job during the summer. But yeah, I've watched a lot of it, and it's all about like politics, philosophy, religion. And
Yes.
it's a whole lot of fun. I'm really enjoying
It's a pretty good show. I mean, it was quite a cult phenomenon while it was going on, and then you'll watch the whole thing. So
Yeah, I've been told to stop at a certain episode. People just said stop, consider it over. Just assume that everyone died.
I didn't say that.
You didn't say
No,
that.
I
Our
didn't
friend
say
Rob
that.
said that. He's like, just assume everybody dies after this episode, and you will be better for it.
It's not that bad. The ending is leaves a lot to be desired, but it's not that bad. And the last like season or whatever is not as terrible as some people make it out to
I
be.
mean, with enough distance, you'll be able to consider it not that bad.
Okay. Well, I'm
it's
really
not
loving
that
where
bad.
I am right now, which is right after season 1, little ways into season 2.
You're on the chair right now.
I'm on the chair right now, yes. But in my mind, I'm at the part that I paused Battlestar Galactica at home before I drove up here. That's where I am.
That sounds fantastic.
Starbuck just got the the Arrow of Apollo, and she brought it back to the ships that had decided to mutiny with the president, and so that they all split and they used their faster than light drives to jump to the point where they were supposed to meet her,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's where I am.
Okay.
That's a good point.
That's a good point.
So who are we anyway? Did we say
We
that?
didn't introduce ourselves.
All right. Allow Darian to reintroduce ourselves. Our name is Hove.
H to the OV.
That's good. We got to get you to perform the whole song eventually. So
That would be something.
that would be fun.
You know, it'd be awesome if we then sent that to him and he sued us because he's the kind of guy who totally would.
That would
What
only
are you
make it
guys
better.
talking
Come on.
about?
Sean is pretty cool. So.
Jay-Z,
Okay.
you know, Darian
Yeah,
just nods his head.
It's not
Yeah.
metal.
Yeah,
so
you know
I'm
this.
not-
Jay Z, Sean.
I've
Carter.
heard of this guy.
You've heard of
I
Hove?
haven't listened to this song. No,
Wow. Okay.
I was listening to some Corpiclani today. However,
Somebody
What
was
if I-
telling me. Somebody was talking to me about Corpicani. Actually, at a party I was at, they were recommending some of that, and they were telling me about the latest in the New Jersey ghoul punk scene. Well, on a side tangent there.
okay.
Yeah, see,
On a
things that I
side
don't pay
tangent,
attention to at all.
we didn't actually introduce ourselves. I'm
Okay.
Darian.
That's Darian.
I'm Bosco.
I'm Tennyson.
And I'm Bile.
Yeah. See, that was pretty easy.
And together we are Thinking
Please stop that.
Fart.
That's too loud.
Torn wagon charge.
Okay, now
No one's
Going
gonna
on.
get that reference except for Ryan.
moving
I
on.
have a picture of that car on my wall.
The
Anyway,
Torn wagon.
continue.
So
Yeah, I mean,
we've
we're-
got some beard growth in the room here. Tennyson, I'm noticing your beard is a little bit more beardier than it usually is.
Yeah, I've just been growing it out.
more beardier.
He's trying to increase his level of anarchist.
Yeah, actually, the bigger your beard gets, I mean, just the awesomer you get.
Apparently,
Is that one of the questions for Kevin, by the way?
How big his beard is?
No,
Yeah.
there are no beard related questions. I will add this right
add
now.
On a scale of Proudhon to Bakunin, how big is your beard?
So we've already seen a picture of his beard before, so we don't know whether he still has the beard or not.
This
Well,
BTW
it's very important.
is why Rothbard sucks. I mean, you look at the beard.
I'm sure at one point he may have tried to grow a beard.
Maybe
Yeah.
we could always just draw beards on him.
That's true. Like the level, you could rate people. We could just get all photos of anarchists, and regardless of the beard they grew, that doesn't necessarily indicate how badass they were. We could just have our own beard scale and just draw it on them, and we could have a website like anarchistbeards.com.
Yeah, that sounds
And then-
good.
I think
And
that
then
was,
people can vote up. Actually, we can make it interactive. So as people vote up and down anarchists, their beards relative to one another change in size.
So Emma could have like a ginormous beard.
Yeah.
Okay, how about we just slide beards down from the top, and then when he gets there, we could just say deal with it.
Okay.
There
I
we
don't
go.
get it.
Internet memes that people don't get.
oh wow,
Kids
so
Kids these days.
Deal with
we're
it.
getting a lot of people in the chat here, so we should.
We have
should-
27 listeners. I think that's a new record.
27 listeners.
No
Wow.
way. All right, those got to be duplicates.
Makes
At least a few of
you
those.
makes you questioning what they're listening to because we've talked about beards and Battlestar Galactica.
They're not. They're just
Beardle Star
they're
Galactica.
arguing in the chat room or something. They're probably not actually paying attention.
Beardle
They're waiting.
Castle.
They're waiting to hear someone else's voice, and then they'll start paying attention.
Ah, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, Bosco, you had some activities you're recently doing.
Oh
Like,
yeah, so after the last show, I biked from where we are through Manhattan.
did you
into
finish
Queens.
all the beer that?
I finished
you
all
had
the beer I
finished?
needed to. I constantly told Bile because I spent the night here, and I told Bile I was like, yeah, I'll get up whenever you get up, and I'll get out of here. And then he got up at like 5 a.m. when he normally gets up, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna go, and I'm like, and he's like, lock the door behind you. So then I proceeded to slack off hard until about like 9, I'd say.
Okay, well, it's always better to do physical activity in the middle of the day during the summer. That's
Well, it's always rough when you're staying at a friend's place and they have like every video game system ever, and you like wake up in the chair and you're like, options: bike 25 miles, or play video games and then probably have dinner with the same friend when he comes home and he's like, oh, you're still here. Anyway, I chose the biking thing, but I biked up to the George Washington Bridge. Hardest part of the whole trek is going uphill to get to the stinking George Washington Bridge. Like it is
pretty high.
It is steep out
Yeah,
here.
that's why people like biking
Yeah.
this area.
It's like crazy steep. But yeah, so I went up to the GWB, crossed over the GWB on the bike, which was another kind of trip because it's weavy and I've never actually seen so many bikers before. I got off at 179th in Manhattan, and I decided I wanted the full Manhattan biking experience. So I took Fort Washington to Broadway, and then I took Broadway just boom down south through Times Square to try to
Wow.
get the full experience.
That's a long ride.
Yeah, well, it's not that bad because it's mostly flat. I'm used to biking in New Jersey, where every other biker I see, I'm like, ooh, it's somebody biking. So I say hi to everybody, if you say hi to everybody in Manhattan, they just think you're a sociopath or something like that. So I'm saying hi to all the bikers. People are like hailing cabs in front of me, and I'm saying hi to them and stuff like that too. And it's yeah, people are looking at me like, wow, you must be from New Jersey or something. And let's see, I almost got run off the road a couple times by a taxi cab, but it's not that bad because nobody's going more than like 35.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've been
totally
hit by a
different
cab before.
experiences there. So I when I say hi to people, people say hi back. So
Really?
yeah, it's the friendliest place in the world. So when
New
I
York
go
is
there,
rated the friendliest city in major city.
yeah, I mean, I go there.
Oddly
just
enough.
random people. I could say hi to them or ask them anything I want. And it's just
Keep growing that beard, you'll be done in. You'll start saying hi to people.
I look like a person of interest, but honestly, no. Judging by recent events, I consider you more dangerous than anything. So at least we should. Actually, we should consider Bile. Really.
yeah. So yeah.
What
So
did I do?
I biked through Manhattan. I got yelled at by a bunch of cops for like blowing red lights and stuff like that. And the funny thing is, it seems first off, there's a cop on every corner in Manhattan, which kind of took me by surprise. But there really is a cop everywhere. Secondly, the cops don't yell at you for the action you took that's illegal. They're not mad that you ran the red light. They're not mad that you're almost mowing over the pedestrians. They're mad that you're not doing it fast enough and things have to slow down. So when they yell at you, they don't even want you to recognize that they're yelling at you. They just want you to continue with the action to get done with what you're doing so that things will progress at a speedy clip. So that was kind of interesting. So I came to the conclusion that you can pretty much do anything you want on a bike as long as you do it fast enough. But yes, I went all the way down to I went down to the Brooklyn Bridge, actually, is where I ended up. Then I went up the Eastern Greenway. I know that's a favorite phrase of yours, Darian. Greenway. You really like the term Greenway.
Sure.
Weren't you telling me before that you hate how everything's labeled as greenways and it's not actually green?
Oh, well, I think I mentioned that, but it's not. It's not a
Darian
big deal.
thinks so many thoughts. It's hard for him
It
to
just
keep
gets
track
lost
of
in his
these things.
mind.
I know.
Well, when things are labeled Greenway and you're just like going through city streets with nothing green, that's just silly. I mean,
Well,
do words not matter anymore? Are we just in a chaotic nothingness of no knowledge?
anarchy.
Yeah,
Yes.
anarchy. You're an anarchist. Come on, that's exactly what you're going for.
Yes,
now
this is what
here
you
it
want.
is.
in
Okay.
anarchy, there'd be
I'm-
greenways everywhere and they'd be gray.
I'm glad you guys are here to tell me what I want.
Exactly.
So anyway, if you go up that greenway by the East River, it actually legitimately is green. So I took that up, passed a bunch of bridges, took the 59th Street Bridge, the Queensboro Bridge, over into Queens. Queens is kind of more interesting to bike in because it's made like an ethnicity layer cake. So I got off the bridge, I'm saying hi to people, and they're saying hola. Then I got to Flushing, I say hi to people, they say ni hao. And then I got through Flushing to the other side, I say hi to people, and they say hi. And I was just, it's amazing. Like, you could put down flags almost where the ethnicities are demarcated in Queens. Like, it's really seems almost like cordoned off. But so yeah, so I went through Queens. The hardest part is it's got all these things going through the middle of it, like the Clearview Expressway and stuff like that, that you have to find ways of getting over. So you have to go down streets and stuff to find bridges over things. And eventually I got to my friend's house and spent the night there. So it was a fun trip. I would highly recommend if anybody's looking to bike in the city, that it might be one of the best places to bike that I've seen on the Eastern Seaboard.
Really?
Just a lot of fun. Yeah.
Okay. That's quite a recommendation.
See,
right there.
the problem with me is to actually get to the bridge. I have no idea how I would do that.
Go here, right? Where you are right now.
How?
Oh, from here? You go down to the road we came in on.
No,
River Road.
guess I could-
follow it all the way
no,
up,
no, no,
and
no,
it's right
no.
there.
I don't know how to get here without going somewhere where I'll get killed. I mean, I guess I could cross the bridge at 46 and then come in through that
What
way.
are you
but-
talking about? What are you trying to do?
He's
He's trying to
bike-
make it from his
from-
home to this direction.
biking that whole
You want to bike here?
from your house.
Well, I have to get to the bridge somehow.
Oh, I thought you were just going to park your car here and get on the bridge here.
No.
Oh,
Uh,
oh, all right.
yeah, I don't know.
From where
how
you
to
are,
do
it's
it.
kind of tough. You're like Shanghai in suburbia.
Yeah, well, there's rivers too that they're only highway bridges across, so it would be.
There's
a little difficult.
usually bridges that have some sort of pedestrian method across for
Yeah,
just about every
I think
river.
I could probably find it. It's just I have to go really out of my way probably to get.
Yeah, I mean Google Bike Directions kind of helps, but it also has you take every like left and right possible. So it really is kind of a matter of trial and error. But I mean, if you do it enough, you can get good at it. Also, if you bike in New Jersey, you just learn not to value your life that much.
Okay.
So when you
That's good to know.
merge across 287 traffic and stuff like that, you're like, which is why biking in New York is such a pleasure. It's like everybody's going slow. It's not terribly dangerous, comparably. It's a good time.
Sounds like a good time. Something I wanted to talk about as well is that Bile does not get tagged in certain things, and neither does Bosco. What's up with that?
I was just messing with people because there was a couple comments made about how Tennyson and Darian had Kevin Carson on tonight. Like, you know,
They do.
Well, the one that actually kind of like irked me was when someone said, "Thanks, Darian, for archiving the show."
Yes, I was-
Like, you know how much time I spend after the show to archive it.
Man, that's tough.
like
I guess we know who the core elements of the show are,
No,
as chosen by listeners.
Darian,
People need to recognize the
It's
actual
okay.
work.
You
that
best
Bile
recognize.
does.
no,
I mean,
it comes with
yeah.
the territory.
Yeah.
I understand. It's like with Julian Heiklin. He gets all the ladies.
I'm sure. I mean, all this technology, all of this, good audio work, all of the editing, everything that goes into this. This is all Bile. So, just try and tag him. I mean, he's not. We probably got mentioned because we're in the mailing list.
Yeah,
So,
that's probably why.
yeah. Like you and Bosco aren't in our secret mailing list, so he didn't get on there. So.
Secret mailing list.
It's not as exclusive as the private chat room.
It's
but-
true. It's true.
I'm actually okay with not being tagged. I look at a lot of stuff I'm tagged in, and I'm like, oh, what the hell is this?
It's like, how do I unsubscribe so I don't
Yeah.
get these dumb emails?
You got to do that untag thing, but sometimes you can't get off no matter what happens.
Yeah, that can be annoying. But yeah, I mean, we could certainly carry out the show without Bile, but it would just be us yelling into like big
Cardboard
megaphones.
tubes.
Just string on them to the guy next door.
We have. You have to be in tube range to hear this podcast.
Like, we'd yell at the neighbor next door, is like, okay, throw this to the internet. Go.
Get me to the internet.
Good times.
But yeah, we wouldn't have the same kind of flair without Bosco here either.
True.
You know.
I remember we had the
Liberty
show.
Flare?
We've had the show without Bosco, and we've had the show with Bosco, and I greatly preferred with Bosco.
I actually really like the without Bosco ones because I used to listen, and
I know.
there's some crazy stuff that happened in the old. You should go back to. Do we have those things archived?
We might.
Do we have
Which-
like the Patriot Radio days archived?
I think they have them archived. I meant to sit down and try to rip them all and put them up on the website, but yeah, that would require effort that I don't have.
Yeah, it'd be
at
a
the
lot of
moment.
effort, but I liked a lot of those ones too.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah.
sure.
So, Bosco, you also did some kind of service project.
Oh yeah, I
Is
was
that
also
true?
working with. That's why I wasn't here last week. I was working with Appalachian Service Project. So we went down to West Virginia, and what I did was I helped oversee a site that built a water tank for somebody who doesn't have access to water at her house. So she had a well, and basically she got the well tested, and it tested way too high for zinc levels and things like that for you to be drinking a lot of it. So
Is that the result of mining or just what comes out of the?
I'm not entirely sure how that aquifer got polluted. I'm not sure how long it's been polluted, but I do know that was her particular case.
Okay.
So she had a couple of setups to try to get herself some water, some good, some bad. But in the end, she ended up carting water every day. She'd go get like 5 gallons of water, right, and bring it down. And she had to walk like 2 miles with it. So it was kind of hard for her. So what we were doing was we were building a shed basically that would hold the water tank, and then the water tank would be hooked up to a pressure tank, and the pressure tank would maintain pressure in the home plumbing system. So she could get, a water truck in, get 425 gallons of water, and then that would be pumped into the trailer home as needed. That was the plan.
So that sounds like a worthwhile endeavor.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Appalachian Service Project it's an interesting group. It's like I'd say maybe like 40% Christian indoctrination, 60% service oriented. Like they truly are like a missionary group type thing. So it was kind of interesting working with them and seeing what my theological qualms with them are and discussing them and having to remind myself constantly that the church really doesn't have much to do with Jesus Christ. That I haven't been to church in so long that I've forgotten that. So it was kind of interesting doing that. But I got to talk to a lot of people, have some good theological debates and things like that.
Wait, what church was it?
The particular church we stayed at was a Methodist church.
Methodist. Okay.
So you're looking at Protestant Christian.
Yeah.
But which really, I mean, it's so watered down. I look at a lot of the stuff people interpret, and I'm like, okay, this particular interpretation of this gospel is designed to be palatable to as many people as you can possibly make it palatable to, when it really wasn't. Like, you know, when he was saying this stuff, it was pretty radical, it was pretty revolutionary. And then, you know, Paul, 35 years later, dumbed it down a little bit more. And then, you know, over time, it's gotten more and more and more and more palatable, to the point that, you know, you're preaching on a gospel where Jesus basically tells a rich guy, sell your stuff, become poor. That's what you need to do. And the person interpreting it's like, well, you know, he didn't literally mean sell your stuff. And it's like, no, he literally did. He was a very literal kind of dude.
Yeah.
So,
Except for those parables. So,
well, I think one thing we should do, since it's a very interesting topic, is we should try to get a Christian anarchist on sometime.
I was actually
we could
thinking
actually
that
just,
like
we could really just
before
talk
the
to
show.
Kevin Carson, honestly, because he knows this is surprisingly enough, this is an area of expertise for him.
Oh, there you go.
So, and not like anything else isn't an area of expertise for him, but
He's
you know, this one in particular.
Expert on everything.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is Tennyson's beard length an area of expertise? I think in this area, I have a comparative advantage over Kevin Carson.
You might have.
Possibly. Somebody says get Todd G on. I think that'd be good.
Yeah, I definitely. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, yeah, we should probably get a Christian anarchist on. I think
We
that'd
could
be an
get Bob
interesting,
Murphy on here. That would be
discussion.
something.
Especially, so when I was on this particular trip, I had a lot of good theological discussions. I've had insightful things like that. And then the good part was the service. We got to help people out too. So that was a good thing.
Oh, that sounds like a good thing to do.
Bad it was.
So we are going to take a break here, and when we come back, we will have Kevin Carson on our show.
Don't promise what you can't deliver.
Somebody says get Tolstoy. Yes.
All right. So we will not have Tolstoy, but we will have Kevin Carson, who probably knows Tolstoy from back when he was a very young computer. And it'll be a good time. So stay tuned for more thinkingliberty.net.
The wavelength gently grows,
And we're back on Thinking Liberty, the bombastic anarcho podcast.
Our chat room says in all caps, "Bring out Carson or we start executing prisoners." Wow.
That doesn't sound very anarchist.
I know. That doesn't sound very nice at all. Why? How'd they get prisoners?
What if they're Spanish
Depends on who the
anarchists?
prisoners are.
Oh.
Okay, that's a good
all right,
point.
Our audience who just heard this mystery voice over the radio, that is actually Kevin Carson, or so we are told.
All right, so, Kevin, it's great to have you on the show. Thanks a lot for being here.
Thanks for having me. But you should know Sheldon Richmond does ventriloquism. So
So Sheldon Richmond says that he's had dinner with Kevin Carson, but then again, Sheldon Richmond might be Kevin Carson, which leads to a whole other set of mysteries there. So,
Bum, bum, bum.
yes.
A lot of mysteries. So, Kevin, why don't you give a quick introduction on who you are, although most of our audience seems to know.
Yeah.
well, I'm just somebody who got into anarchism, I guess, in the late 90s, and finally got on a line about the turn of the century and started writing. You know, I had a whole bunch of unpublished manuscripts on various marginal subjects that probably would have never seen the light of day if it weren't for the internet as the world's cheapest printing press. And once I found out I had an internet audience and there was such a thing as on-demand publishing, it just seemed like a natural fit. I was drawn more towards market anarchism, like the anarchism of Benjamin Tucker, than anything else. So I've tended to put a left-wing spin on free market libertarianism, as I'm sure a lot of people could tell you for ill as well as good out there. So that's about it.
All right, I got a question. Initially, now I remember trying to get you on this show several months ago, like a long time ago.
Several
And
months is a long time.
I don't know. I mean, it's even more than just like 3 months. It's more like 4 months or 6 months or 8
All right.
months or even a year ago.
As a
And,
fraction of time that we've been doing the show, I
yeah,
guess it's a
it's
significant
a
fraction.
significant amount.
Geologically, that's insignificant.
True. I mean, in terms of the
Internetology.
in terms of cosmic
ologically.
time, the cosmic perspective, yes, it's not really that much time. But
So are we.
anyway, so like you seemed more reluctant to come on the air or do any of the stuff, but then we saw you on it looked like Iranian Press TV, and then you seem to have come
Yeah.
out of the media shell. So like, what's different now?
Well, I don't know. I've always just been a pretty private person and like to keep my life and meat space pretty much compartmentalized from my life as a writer and commentator. But and I'm kind of tinfoil hattish about my face and voice being out there. But
Okay.
finally decided, what the hell? It's not that big a deal. So
Well, hopefully it's for the
plus,
better.
it might actually help me sell some books, which would be nice.
That's true.
So, what books do you have out now, and how can people get them?
Well, they're all at Amazon, and I think they're all available on my websites as free PDF downloads, although I think there's some kind of screw up with the PDF of Mutualist Political Economy. I'll have to try to fix the website at mutualist.org and figure out what's screwed up on that. But you can find them all at Amazon. There's studies in Mutualist Political Economy, which was my initial attempt at stating a modernized version of individualist or mutualist anarchism. And then there was organization theory, libertarian perspective, which was my take on the irrationality of large organizations and the things that are likely to replace them. And my latest, the Home Brew Industrial Revolution, a low overhead manifesto, was sort of an outgrowth of the previous book. There were certain things I picked up on an organization theory that I didn't fully develop, but I couldn't let go of after I was done writing it, and one thing led to another.
I noticed I was actually flipping through. I was kind of jokingly telling the people here that my show prep today was to open organization theory and read the table of contents.
That's enough to write a review, I think.
But I got a little bit further than the table of contents. I actually got to the title page, and I noticed that it's listed under the Woody Guthrie license, I believe it was. What exactly is the Woody Guthrie license? Would you care to indulge us?
I'm just being a smart ass. It's basically just whatever you want to call it. I'm not really much into copyright law, so just extemporaneously I couldn't tell you right offhand difference between Creative Commons and copyleft and all that. But basically everything I write is in the public domain. I'd appreciate the courtesy of attribution, but other than that, reproduce it at will for whatever purpose. And the Woody Guthrie quote was just my way of making that point.
I liked it. It made me smile.
Yeah, it usually does.
Oh, that's good.
Smiling is good. So, Kevin, we had some discussion on beards, and we were wondering what kind of facial hair.
Very highbrow show we've got here.
What kind of facial hair does Kevin Carson sport?
Oh, hell, you can't be an anarchist without a beard, right? I mean, it goes with the bomb and just a full beard. I whack at it every once in a while when it starts looking lopsided or getting too shaggy.
So take that, Rothbard.
Regular old beard.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
All right, I got a question. Like, I know some people who are really just new to mutualism or the ideas of a leftish kind of market anarchism would ask, why not call yourself an anarcho-capitalist? Like, what's wrong with that term? Why not just use that? Even if there is something wrong with it, doesn't it seem to encapsulate your views of what it is that you're going for?
Not really.
Okay.
Just, I guess the tradition I picked up on when I was attracted to anarchism was very anti-capitalist. I mean, it just as a self-description, people like Thomas Hodgkin, Tucker, and the American individualists, and they very much distinguished their idea of the free market from what the capitalists of their day were defending. And then, too, anarcho-capitalism just carries a lot of cultural baggage, of just right-wing apologetic, I think, for a lot of things in the contemporary economy that I'm not real fond of. So,
okay.
I'm not saying there aren't good anarcho-caps out there. I think Sean Wilbur, he's an individualist anarchist who, I've said before, has probably forgotten more anarchist history than I've learned. Likes to make the distinction between anarcho-capitalists with anarcho in quotes and anarcho-capitalists with capitalists in quote. There are, the first group is anarcho-capitalists who are basically just apologists for corporate capitalism that use a veneer of free market principles, and then the others are genuine market anarchists who happen to use the term capitalism for what folks on the libertarian left mean by freed market.
So what would you say is your objection to using the term capitalism to describe a freed market, or what distinctions would you draw?
Well, I don't have any problem with people that use that term. I know I get pretty bent out of shape when people keep trying to push their terminology off on me or correct me, so I pretty much let other people do their thing. But I think the distinction between freed markets and capitalism is a useful one. If you view capitalism as a system, I think R.A. Wilson described it as a system with free market elements, but predominantly characterized by privilege, that is, state-enforced artificial property rights, state-enforced artificial scarcity and entry barriers, and all the monopoly rents that accrue to the owners of those forms of property. And a freed market society is an economy with all those forms of artificial scarcity and monopoly removed from it, so that competition can drive those rents down to zero.
Okay, so similarly, I guess some people aren't sure the distinction between individualist anarchism and mutualism, and some people might say that you use these terms kind of overlapping in an overlapping manner. So if I could just get like your take on how you would distinguish individualist anarchism from mutualism.
Really, I do use them in a pretty overlapping sense. It's more, I guess, an impressionistic thing than anything else. I think of mutualism as more focused on forms of mutualistic organization that would exist in a post-state society. And mutualism is not necessarily anarchist. I mean, you can have historically mutualist movements that would substitute, the third sector for a lot of state and corporate activities that's not necessarily anarchist in a strict sense. But they're more complementary terms than anything else, I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah, we're trying to determine what exactly we should go for next, because we have questions that are popping up in the chat room as a result of the talk we're having right now, and we also have questions that people had generated before this from when they realized that you were going to be on the show. Like, what are we going to ask Kevin? So I don't know. Do you want to, guys? Do you want to try and jump into one of the pre-asked questions?
Yeah, let's shoot for an audience question.
All right, Bosco, you want to read this first one?
Sure. Here we go. So we actually put up a post a little while ago, Kevin. We asked if anybody had any questions for you, and here's one of the ones we got. It starts with, can I have your autograph? Okay, no, but seriously, how do you see small-scale competition winning out against larger firms in the long run in a truly freed market? Do you see any larger-scale firms existing in a freed market?
Okay.
Well, just to take the second question first, I don't know if I'd call them firms or not, but I see some kinds of large-scale organization existing on a territorial basis, just because so many things like communications infrastructure, transportation infrastructure require some kind of organizational apparatus over a large area. And there are some forms of production that as yet still require very expensive and capital-intensive methods that would have to have large market areas like microchips. Other than that, though, I would expect the share of production carried out in large-scale enterprises would be a lot smaller. To take the first question, generally there are two ways I see it coming about. One is just through all of the terminal crises that make the current centralized model unsustainable. Things like peak oil, the effect of the network revolution on copyright law, fiscal crisis of the state, the terminal crisis of the economy with things like idle productive capacity, insufficient demand, and chronic tendency towards long-term unemployment. And then there are the new technological developments that are shifting the competitive edge away from large hierarchical organizations towards small-scale production and network organization. The physical side of it is something I covered in the homebrew and industrial revolution. I covered the network culture aspect to a lesser extent. That will be the subject of my next book.
All right, so some people in the chat room were asking, how do you see the IWW, the Industrial Workers of the World, fitting into this scheme? I mean, it seems like it's a very large organization, but I believe you're a member, or at least you've spoken favorably of them. So how do you see like the IWW and this one big union idea fitting it into a world where there's more decentralized production and, I guess, decentralized societies?
Well, I consider myself a member, and I'm all for them, although I don't know if they consider me a member. I'm pretty far behind in my dues, and I haven't received any statements or anything in some time. I'm just not very good at keeping up with membership obligations, unfortunately.
It's an anarchist thing.
Yeah. I see them as playing a very important role, or at least their organizational model that they advocate for labor relations. What they're doing, what they call direct action on the job, intersects pretty closely with the forms of networked resistance that have come up over just the last 15 years ago. The last 15 years or so. Back in the 90s, the stuff that David Ronfeld and John Archaea covered at the Rand Corporation on swarming, network resistance, and so forth. The time they wrote it was on the Global Support Network for the Zapatistas. They were initially writing before Seattle and the anti-globalization movement, and other things like Frank Kernahan's culture jamming campaigns against Kathy Lee Gifford, and that whole kind of network organization seems like it would dovetail very well with Wobbly's open mouth sabotage, and with what used to be called the corporate campaign in labor struggle, where you'd have a loose umbrella association of a lot of social justice and community activist organizations all federating together to support a strike or a publicity campaign against some corporate malefactor. It's getting to the point where because there are no longer gatekeeper corporations controlling access to the media, there are virtually zero entry barriers to speaking out to a worldwide audience. And the corporations are finding out, very much to their dismay, that they're just being nibbled to death by piranha because it's a lot easier for us to talk and they can't shut us up.
Okay. All right. I'm going to ask one that our mutual friend Ross Kenyon actually asked us. He asked, does monopoly capitalism presuppose a homogeneous conception of capital? And he elaborates on this by asking, my question's about macroeconomics, which are very influenced by theories of monopoly capitalism, which have not been well received in libertarian circles. So he would like you to explain overaccumulation and overproduction and why these words are absent from libertarian discourse.
Well, as to why they're absent from libertarian discourse, I just say, well, they're words that Marxists use, and so the typical reaction is, ew. other than that, I think it's fully consistent with free market ideas because remember when the neo-Marxists talk about overaccumulation and underconsumption, they are describing something that occurs in our actually existing economy. And the last I heard, even the right-wing libertarians would admit this is not a free market economy. It just makes sense to me that if you have government artificial scarcities and privileges that are shifting income away from labor, which has a high propensity to spend and consume, and towards the owners of artificial property rights who have a high propensity to save and invest, you're going to wind up with a lot of surplus investment capital that has a hard time looking for a profitable outlet, and you're going to wind up with a lot of excess productive capacity lying idle because there's not enough demand to keep the capacity fully utilized. And you're going to have a growing tendency towards financialized bubble economies to absorb all of that excess investment capital that can't find a profitable outlet. I don't see that as the natural outcome of a free market, but then to get a free market, you would have to go back about 600 years and correct a wrong turn that was taken around the time Henry Tudor came to the throne.
Okay, something that I wanted to ask that's related to this is that somebody asked me for a specific example of, say, like overproduction that has occurred in our mixed economy because they can't think of any types of overproduction. And related to that, there was a question on Keynesian analysis. I remember reading a C4SS piece where you wrote that Keynesian analysis of the Great Depression was essentially correct. And I think that some people bristled at that because they figure either a monetarist description or even the Rothbardian description of the Great Depression is obviously more correct, and we can't accept anything from the Keynesians in this. So, I mean, tying all that together, what do you say in response to those?
Well, just off the top of my head, to take an example, I wouldn't use the term overproduction, really. I'm sure I've used it in the past, but it's a little too sloppy. I would say excess production capacity. And a classic example of that today is the automobile market. I think their capacity is something like 18 million cars a year, and it's running at maybe 12 million right now, and a lot of that is still the after effect of the Cash for Clunkers program, I think.
Okay.
And on the Keynes thing, I think what I actually said was that Keynes was right about the Depression as far as it goes, given the structure of corporate capitalism that we had in 1929 and the tendencies towards excess capacity and demand shortfalls that we had. The only way to keep that system going is with government deficit spending or monetary expansion or something of the sort that will increase aggregate demand enough to utilize all that idle capacity.
Okay, real quick, I just want to cut in. We had a question in the chat room. Would the military-industrial complex be an example of overproduction?
Well, I guess it's overproduction in the sense that they're producing stuff that nobody in their right mind would want. But I think of it as more of one of the ways that the neo-Marxist writers Paul Baran and Paul Sweeney at the Monthly Review, I think the book was called Monopoly Capitalism, And they said that in the 20th century, one of the main roles of government was to provide outlets for excess capital and excess productive capacity. And that's basically what the military economy does. In 1984, in Goldstein's book, he says the main function of war is to take all of this surplus output and blast it into the stratosphere or sink it to the bottom of the ocean so that people, first of all, economies don't collapse from idle capacity, but second, so that people don't get too, the average people don't get too comfortable and have too much leisure time for education and start having ideas.
I thought the military-industrial complex, they just had a real penchant for the world's crappiest boots. I've actually believed, I had this conversation with Darian, that the military does not make anything that's actually waterproof. That's what always kills me about it, too. It's not even like they're making decent stuff. You look at the things that people are outfitted with, and it's like, wow, this is a terrible product all around. All right, well...
I've known enough people in the military that would probably agree that there's some kind of conspiracy to produce crap that just keeps them as miserable and uncomfortable as possible.
Oh, yeah, and then they end up buying all their own boots and all their own other gear anyway because the boots are terrible and the socks are terrible, and it's a big mess. But I got another question for you.
Yeah, before you move on, that just made me think of all the Dilberts in their cubicles in corporate America that are presented with all of this clunky proprietary office productivity software from one of Bill Gates's clones that wind up just downloading stuff from Google or Mozilla that they can actually work with.
Oh yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. That's the way it works. A lot of wasted effort. But here's a question that we also got for you. It says, how are environmental issues, and this person lists rights of wildlife, protection of air, atmosphere, etc., addressed in a freed market?
I'm guessing that's either Tokyo Tom or Sean Wilbur.
Then we might have their real names.
Okay. Well, if you look at the economy we actually have, the waste of natural resources is heavily subsidized. The consumption of energy and of transportation as a factor is heavily subsidized, and the regulatory state has gone a long way towards preempting the old common laws of private and public nuisance, so that polluters are subject to a much less stringent form of accountability than they might have been under tort law. In a lot of cases, the regulatory standards actually act as a sort of safe harbor, where if someone is sued for harmful effects of pollution, they can just say, well, I met the regulatory standard, and that's based on sound science, so that, preempts whatever junk science you have that blames us for the fact that you're coughing your lungs up. For that matter, sometimes the regulatory standard is used to criminalize voluntary adherence to more stringent standards, like Monsanto trying to make it a form of food libel for people to advertise that their milk is free from recombinant bovine growth hormone.
Okay. So I guess, did you want to elaborate, or you want to move on to another question?
I think you kind of really hit it up all there. I mean, it really, I definitely agree with you.
I wanted to add, there are people that point out that there's no way under a free market regime to perfectly internalize the externalities. And in response to that, I would just say that even partially internalizing these costs would probably be enough to make that kind of activity prohibitively expensive. You don't have to be perfect; you just have to be good enough.
Yeah, I think that's something that anarchists face a lot when people ask them, well, how would this work? Can you explain some possibilities? And they're like, well, what about this? And what about this? And that can't work in all circumstances. Like, well, how does anything work? That nothing works very well. Like,
it
what
doesn't
we
have to
now
be
is
utopia.
terrible.
It just has to be better. That's
Well,
all.
yeah.
Significant-
How would an anarchist society have prevented the BP oil spill? I don't know. How did this society prevent it?
Yeah, it's I mean it has to be better enough to make it worth the effort to go in that direction, but to say that it has to be perfect, you're really implying that what we have now is very good, at least, and I think it's pretty clear that it isn't, and we're identifying some of the reasons why that is.
Well, people have status quo bias, so anything that exists, they're going to be biased towards it already.
The devil you know kind of thing.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, we got another question?
Yeah, we got plenty.
Oh, we've got questions for Mr.
Got an
Carson.
unlimited number of questions now.
All right, so I think I will ask a question that is another more economics-related question, and that is, Austrian business cycle theory says that government causes interest rates to be too low. Mutualist banking
He
theory
knows.
says that government causes interest rates to be too high. You've said these claims aren't necessarily inconsistent. Please explain, preferably in rhyme.
In rhyme.
Yeah. Thanks, Roderick.
Thank you, Roderick.
Well, yeah, I do. The two things are mutually consistent. On the one hand, down here from a ground view level, it is a lot more expensive for ordinary people to organize mutual credit, either by advancing secure loans against their own property in mutual banks, or through things like Tom Greco's credit clearing networks that advance credit by essentially running protected overdrafts in member accounts, which is a form of credit against future productivity. At the same time, it is artificially cheap for the privileged bankers to issue credit because they're just creating the credit out of thin air. They are not using any actual assets of theirs, or economizing on expenditures elsewhere in order to advance the credit. It's really not a saving from anything. It's just money that they are able to create because of fractional reserve banking. Anytime the government wants to increase the money supply, they change the reserve ratios or deposit some federal securities in the Federal Reserve banks to increase the size of their reserves, and suddenly one way or the other, the banks are suddenly authorized to issue a much larger sum of credit against their existing reserves. So that's all money that just came out of nowhere and cost them absolutely nothing to lend. But at the same time, because of the legal backing of the banking monopoly, legal tender laws, banking licensing laws, and so forth, the banks are able to charge a monopoly price for a service that costs them nothing. So it's both true at the same time. I think if we did away with bank licensing and regulations, did away with legal tender laws, it would be a lot easier for ordinary people to create liquidity for exchange on a local level without having to accumulate money from past labor. They could more easily exchange present and future services with each other, even when there's supposedly no money in the economy. And interest-free secured loans through mutual banks would have a competitive effect on lowering the general interest rate. But at the same time, the banks that are currently getting rich by lending money into existence at interest would just be SOL. Which is why anyone who presented a credible threat of doing anything like that in Congress would probably wind up buried next to Jimmy Hoffa.
So
which is close to where we are now.
it almost sounds like maybe there's a distortion of risk going on, that people aren't able to take on the risk themselves by creating these mutual credit systems, whereas big banks are protected from risk. Would you say maybe that is?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so that's sort of accurate.
Sure, but I mean, a lot of this stuff, it all just goes back to that wrong turn 600 years ago, because if you look in the free towns of the Middle Ages, there were all of these horizontal reputational mechanisms where people just assumed as a normal state of affair that they were supposed to self-organize their own security and hedging against risk and keeping track of various tradesmen's reputation for quality and for paying their bills on time and so forth. But as Kropotkin described it, the modern state came along and said there will be no state within the state. Any association between more than two or three people for any purpose has to be stamped out. And we're the people that need to provide this security and quality regulation and so forth. And people have so internalized that over the centuries that it really is inconceivable that this sort of thing could be done otherwise than through a state.
Okay. I actually had a couple of questions on this. You mentioned this stuff about the Middle Ages, and I think that's very interesting. So I was hoping you could recommend some sources on that, like where you can go for more information. And the other thing, if you could just maybe elaborate a little bit on mutual banking and how that works, and maybe why we don't see more of it.
Okay. Well, my favorite author on the Middle Ages would be Kropotkin in the state and in mutual aid. That's the main author that comes to mind. It's been so long since I wrote on most of that stuff that I'd have to dig back through my own footnotes to figure out what other stuff I consulted. Mutual banking. The idea is that any group of individuals who want to can come together to form a banking cooperative or a mutual bank and issue credit against their issue credit backed by their own property, interest-free. And what it really amounts to is what they're doing isn't issuing a loan at all. It's simply transforming their property into a liquid asset while they remain in occupation of it. It's exactly the same thing a commercial bank does when it issues a second mortgage or some other form of secured loan, only the commercial banks are in a monopoly position because of government licensing laws that serve as entry barriers, so they can charge an artificially high price for the service. They're required to maintain certain levels of capital reserves, even to issue secured loans, even though the security is provided by the borrower herself. if there were free competition and free entry, that would drive that interest premium right down to zero, so that the only cost would be an inflation premium and the cost of administration. It's funny, Rothbard dismissed that as a form of money crankery, like equivalent to the free silver movement or the greenback movement or something. But he actually made a criticism of the life insurance industry that was exactly the same as William Green's and Benjamin Tucker's criticism of banking. Rothbard said that government licensing regulations required life insurance companies to maintain reserves larger than what would be required for purely actuarial reasons, and this reserve requirement was an entry barrier that enabled the incumbent life insurance providers to charge an artificially high monopoly price for life insurance. And that's exactly what Green and Tucker said the state's banking regulations do for issuing secured credit.
Okay. All right. I think that we should take a break, honestly. But
I agree. Just
yeah.
to settle something going on in the chat room really quick.
Yeah.
Kropotkin had a much bigger, bushier beard than Benjamin Tucker.
that
Just
is
throwing it out there.
that's
Oh, hell yeah.
yeah.
See, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Tucker's was neatly trimmed, sure.
He was a stylish guy, I think.
He had fancy clothes on and pocket watches and all that, and that people thought of him as stuck up, I guess. Yeah. Bile.
Oh, yeah.
You can,
All right, so we're going to take like a 1 minute break or so, and then when we come back, we have more questions for Kevin Carson, so stay tuned.
Good.
And we're back on thinkingliberty.net, the Anarcho Bombast podcast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We're not always bombastic.
No, I mean,
But when we
I'm not
are.
going to be the bombast guy. You're the bombast guy.
I'm the bombast
You're the
guy.
one people come to for that. You are the source for that.
But, I mean, I wouldn't play it up so much if it wasn't for all our logos that promise bombast.
That's
you know?
true.
I think we have someone else to blame for that who's not here right now. So it's even
Well, I
better.
mean, I like the new logos, because it's got the lady and she's holding, I don't know, what is it, the Washington Monument. Looks like she's about to
The
take
Washington
on the.
phallus.
She's holding
Yeah.
Zaxelback.
She's about to take on. Yeah, it's half of Zaxelback. But it has to be round metallic sphere.
That's in the other logo.
Yeah. So then, she's taking on the Washington Monument, no, not the Washington, but taking on the Capitol building or something, and yeah, that one doesn't seem as bombast promising, but I like that.
Darian just likes the bombast because every time he says bombast, he knows there's some random government filter out there that filters out the bomb part. And they say,
I see.
in this podcast, bomb was said 2,000 times.
It's like we're
Yeah,
gonna.
if you're being bombastic, shouldn't you talk in an Eric Cartman voice?
There you go.
All right, I got a question. Seems like something has come up in the chat room, and they say, "Like, well, is Kevin Carson a gateway drug?" That's something. So people who get into Kevin Carson mutualism, and then all of a sudden they start turning into anarcho-socialist, anarcho-communist, or whatever else they may turn into. So is it that people are going from the purity of anarcho-capitalism and then being lured by the siren song of reasonability that Kevin
purity.
Carson has? Yeah, it's this icy
Are
crystal
these
of pure
people
thing.
disagreeing with me and thereby becoming more wrong?
Yeah, I mean that's something that somebody's got to consider. It's like, what is this? Is Kevin actually a plant there to bring everybody to communism? I've heard people say this about Roderick, by the way, at the Mises Institute. So, like, Roderick is only there to make people communist or whatever it is.
Interesting. No, actually, I'm working for a modern day anarchist version of the Congress on Cultural Freedom. It was an old front organization the CIA ran back in the 50s to attract the left into organizations that they could manage, and I'm doing the same thing for anarchists right now. So,
Oh, there we go.
As long as if the CIA is involved,
No.
then it must be good, right?
yeah, they don't pay very well. No,
Do they just pay you in
funny
Coke?
thing is, pardon?
I said, do they just pay you in cocaine? Is that they just give you the drugs?
Coke
No,
money.
Afghan opium.
Oh,
Yeah,
there
get
we
with
go.
the times, man. Get with
Sorry,
the times.
I'm so 80s over here.
Yeah, the French connection's been severed now. We're doing something else. All right.
The funny thing is, I get exactly the same kinds of reactions in venues like InfoShop. That where people have called me a 9 Rand worshipping, racist, goose stepping fascist and things
Wow.
like that because I talk about free markets.
Well, that sounds reasonable.
Anybody ever call you
Oh, yeah.
landlord von racist? Because that's got to be the best
But-
thing anybody can call you.
Landlord von racist.
But I mean, there are people like, Chuck Munson that runs InfoShop. He's very friendly to the ideas of a lot of the people affiliated with the Alliance of the Libertarian Left. I think he's a friend of Brad Spangler, among other people. So, we've got a lot of traditional red and black social anarchists that are becoming at least more aware or more accepting of market anarchist ideas when it's made clear that market anarchism doesn't mean selling the United States to Halliburton.
Well, do you think that there necessarily has to be a zero-sum game between market anarchism and social anarchism, or do you think there can be some kind of complementary or symbiotic relationship, maybe a mutual relationship?
Wow, you had to throw the word in there, right?
Yeah, we like
Oh,
words.
yeah.
Get some approximations.
Definitely. There's a lot of room for overlap. For one thing, mutualism leaves a lot of wiggle room for defining property rights. I'm writing a C4SS research paper right now on communal property rights on the old Neolithic open field model of the village commune, where you would have the open fields periodically redivided between families every few years as the population changed. That was shut down by enclosures in England and first by Stolypin and then by collectivization in the Soviet Union. That was the predominant model of agrarian property ownership before the rise of the state, from the beginning of the agricultural revolution until the rise of the state. That most of humankind lived that way, and I have no problem with societies that choose that form of organization. And market anarchism doesn't mean everything's done by business firms through the cash nexus. It just means that all interactions are voluntary and consensual. So you've got a huge scope there potentially for non-money transactions in the informal economy at the household or neighborhood barter economy level, for gift economies, for mutual aid and friendly societies, for voluntary communism and everything else. I would actually suspect that transactions in the cash nexus would be a much smaller minority of total economic life than it is now in a voluntary society. Market anarchism just means that you see market transactions between consenting adults as a legitimate way to do things, and you don't interfere with people's voluntary choices.
Okay, so I want to get back into our audience questions. We have a few more, and then we've had some that kind of developed during the time in the chat room. If we have time here,
Yeah, we'll scroll back up and see what we can pick.
well,
You sure you want to do that?
we
Well,
have.
I could probably hang around a few minutes longer if there's nobody else that has to be bumped.
No, we don't. We don't have anyone
Feel
else.
free. We'd like to have you. So, all right,
Yeah.
what's on the list here?
All right. I think the next question we will ask is, which experiences in his life, in your life, have caused you to be so devoted to this cause?
You could just adjust all those pronouns,
No.
You could-
Okay.
Also, it goes on. Also, what does he think of the people at the Mises Institute?
Okay.
Aside from C4SS and the Freeman, which publications, websites would he recommend? That's several questions, but
a lot of
we'll try to get to them all. We'll pretend that it's one big question.
All right. First
Yeah,
question.
I don't know if I can keep the entire thing in my mind.
Yeah.
I think formative experiences, well, I don't know, just seems like one of the earliest things I learned in life was that authority was usually irrational and arbitrary and self-serving, and the best way to deal with it was to ignore it or circumvent it. The old saying, it's better to ask forgiveness than to ask permission.
Yeah.
I imagine there are a lot of little kids that learn that lesson pretty early, and then my experiences in academia and the world of work reinforced that. It just seems like everywhere you go, there are pinheads and parasites sitting behind desks whose mission in life seems to be to inject as much irrationality and interference as possible with the people actually doing the work. I was attracted to programs like the Rockford Files and Green Acres, where there was some character just dealing with totally off the wall, irrational things and nobody seemed to notice, or the movie Brazil for that matter. And coming into anarchism, that just seemed to reinforce all those ideas. I just tend to instinctually assume that the person who's doing a job is the best qualified person to decide how it should be done, and that interference from outside by anyone who's not directly connected to a situation or who doesn't fully internalize the results of the decision will almost certainly result either in irrationality or in a zero-sum outcome.
Okay, and the question also asked, what do you think of the people at the Mises Institute? And aside from Center for a Stateless Society and the Freeman, which publications and websites would you recommend?
Okay, let's see. Let's start with the Mises Institute. Well, obviously, I like Roderick Long, who I think occasionally still writes there. And
sounds like a shady
Stephan
character.
Kinsella. Pardon?
Sounds like a shady character, this Roderick Long.
He hasn't become a non-person at Mises yet.
No. He's got
But,
a lot of he's got a lot of pull over at the Mises Institute apparently. So there's a lot of people who go there to see him and be in his classes and things. So.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought they shut down JLS just to get rid of him. But, I'm sorry, I didn't say that.
Oh, wow.
But I like Stephan Kinsella. He's about the best guy out there when it comes to IP issues.
True.
At least in the libertarian community. I mean, there's Dr. Owen Masnick and all those assorted characters. It's a pretty big, happy family. There's a lot of stuff to attack out there, so it's a pretty target-rich environment that can support a lot of us. Other than that, even a lot of the people there that I criticize most of the time, every once in a while they come up with something pretty good. So just about anything's a mixed bag. What was the rest of that? Something about the Freeman?
Aside from the Freeman and Center for a Stateless Society, what publications and websites would you recommend?
Just the purely libertarian nature. It's hard to say because there aren't really any publications that I follow on a consistent basis. I've got a pretty long list of feeds on my blog reader. It's a Google Reader, and I'm on a lot of email discussion lists, and I'm on some pretty frequent round robins with people at C4SS and Alliance of the Libertarian Left that will just tip me off to interesting links and so forth. The one libertarian, I like a lot of the bloggers with ALL, like Roderick, Charles Johnson, Sheldon, Gary. I'm sure there are a lot of others, Darian, that a lot of others I've left out that I mostly just pick up on through my reader. The one libertarian writer I can think of that I get a lot of stuff from just on law enforcement issues is Radley Dalco.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's just, a lot of stuff I pick up from a lot of different sources depending on what comes to my attention. Most of the stuff I'm really focused on is not libertarian per se. It's stuff like John Robb's Global Guerrillas.
I really
blog,
like that stuff. Yeah,
That's a good one too.
Yeah, or Schneier.
Schneier and
on
Security.
security. It's
Yeah,
another good
got
one.
that
Yep.
one too.
That stuff that's related to my forthcoming book, and there's a
Forthcoming
lot
book?
of pardon.
Forthcoming book?
Oh yeah, I didn't mention that.
Yeah.
The desktop regulatory state. I've got very rough draft manuscript chapters up at a WordPress blog I created for it. So it's just called the Desktop Regulatory State .wordpress.com.
Interesting. What is the
But,
meaning of the desktop regulatory state? What does that phrase
good-
mean?
Okay,
for you?
good
well,
question.
I'll finish up the
Okay,
tail
sorry,
end of the last
sorry.
question here. There's there's a lot of stuff that's not libertarian per se, but provides a lot of really great fodder for libertarian blogging. A lot of the places like Alternet and the various lefty and green aggregators have a lot of news stories about things that should be of concern to libertarians, because they're very much examples of the state operating on behalf of privilege in ways that a free market could help with. And then there's Matt Iglesias's blog. He's about as good as any libertarian when it comes to pointing out irrational results of licensing and zoning laws and so forth. Okay, desktop regulatory state. It's basically just a study of how. You familiar with John Robb's term, super empowered individuals?
Yeah, basically that through networking, one person can amass a lot of power, basically take down a lot of systems. I guess I'm kind of butchering it, but maybe you could correct
Well,
me
yeah,
there.
I mean that's basically it. The existence of networked communications and just the mushroom proliferation of all kinds of free platforms just over the last few years, web-based, browser-based, or open source desktop software have expanded the capacity of individuals to perform tasks that used to require a huge bureaucratic organization to accomplish. The same way, I think it was Tom Coates that said all of these new forms of productivity software were erasing the old difference between what could be accomplished at work and what could be accomplished at home, and all sorts of things like, editing an encyclopedia or sound editing, music, desktop publishing, and software design, and so forth. And I'm kind of extending that same general principle to regulatory state functions, because the original justification for the regulatory state was that in the late 19th century, production became so capital intensive and the specialized machinery became so expensive that only very large hierarchical organizations could carry out those functions, had the resources to procure all the machinery, and then they had to be large and bureaucratic to supervise running all that machinery and all the thousands of people it took to run it. And as a result, you needed a regulatory state that was just as large and bureaucratic to counterbalance that power. That's what Galbraith in American Capitalism called countervailing power. You have this sort of three-legged stool of big business, big government, and big labor, and maybe big media thrown in as another leg. They're all balancing each other out with a checks and balances system. And I'm arguing that not only, as I pointed out in Homebrew Industrial Revolution, does the capital requirement for physical production collapse to almost nothing, but the entry barriers to being a one-person regulatory state have fallen to almost nothing. All these different forms of networked resistance we talked about earlier with the Wobblies or with Frank Kernahan versus Kathy Lee Gifford and all that other stuff, or the Walmart Workers Association or the Amolaki workers with their boycott of Taco Bell. We're able to basically take on giant bureaucracies and just cut them off at the knees, and it's just going to get worse and worse for them.
Okay.
Cool.
So I hope you have time for a couple more questions. We have
sure.
we have two from our listeners, and they are pretty related. So I'll just ask them together. And the first is, what are the 3 or 4 authors or reference materials that you turn to or rely on when approaching or orienting yourself to a question or problem? And the other one is, in both studies in mutualist political economy and organization theory, you cite Immanuel Wallerstein fairly extensively. How has he or other left-leaning folks, such as Paul Maddox, shaped your thinking?
Okay. On the sources I use, I can't really think of anything in particular that I just turn to right off the bat to orient myself towards anything, because the topics I write about are so divergent. And the stuff I've written on organization theory and on desktop manufacturing, I was heavily influenced by the Waddell and Bodek book, Rebirth of American Industry, and by I hate it when I'm on the radio and I can't think of something. I can't remember the author's name, but the Second Industrial Divide on the rise of network manufacturing, and Womack, the machine that changed the world. Now with the with the desktop regulatory state, I'm really relying a lot on John Robb, and I also get a lot of stuff, as I did from my previous book, just participating in online communities and email lists like the peer-to-peer research email list. Other than that, I mean, I probably start out with Google and Wikipedia. Truth be known. And what was the other thing?
The other question was
About Wallerstein, right?
Yeah, it says you cite Immanuel
the
Wallerstein.
left wingers. I'm studying economics. What I probably started out with more than anything was Kirkpatrick Sale's book, Human Scale, because it was just when I was really starting to get into the diseconomies of large size and the way small-scale organization in a lot of ways was more efficient. I just pretty much mined the hell out of his end notes and pursued them, several removes down. And that amounted to several years reading. And then, I came into contact with Tucker and the individualists and the whole idea that, capitalism depends on a state, that it's a matter of state-enforced monopoly, and that free markets are the enemy of privilege. And from there, one big influence was Joe Stromberg's article, statement, Monopoly Capitalism and Imperialism. I don't remember the exact title, but it was something like that.
Yeah.
Where he drew on a lot of the, not so much the neo-Marxists, but on people like J.A. Hobson, analyzing how privilege was the source of excess productive capacity and excess investment capital, and imperialism as a policy for remedying that. And I started reading people like Paul Braun and Paul Sweezy and the other writers at the Monthly Review, and I found that a lot of what they wrote echoed what I'd already picked up from Hobson, and that even though I'm sure they would strenuously disavow it, a lot of it was very much compatible with a free market analysis of the origins of these problems of chronic tendency towards excess capacity.
Okay.
And then sure, there's also Gabriel Kolko's analysis of regulatory cartelization and the role of the state in propping up big business. You can't forget him.
Right.
He's another Marxist. I'm sure wouldn't be pleased the use I've made of him, but he really is good.
Yeah, I've heard
That's what you get for writing
Yeah,
things.
I've heard people say that Kolko is actually, when he was around and talking about this, he was kind of disappointed that libertarians were taking his point as some sort of support for the possibility of a free market. So, Gabriel Kolko on Triumph of Conservatism and was it Railroads and Regulation? I can't remember the other one that he wrote.
I don't
The
know.
Railroads and Regulation.
Yeah, I think that was the name of it. Yeah. All right, what was the other question?
And there's the pardon.
No, he was going to.
Oh,
read
there's the
another one.
Butler Schaefer book.
Yes.
Also, that kind of continues Kolko's analysis of the FTC.
In Restraint of Trade.
Can't remember That's the one.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't think of the title.
All right.
Okay, we got another question for you. People asking, I guess, about looking at origins of thought, and people are wondering, do the origins of your thought stem more from natural law or the utilitarian side, egoist? I guess they're kind of asking. This is like the deontological versus consequentialist ethics question, pretty much, right?
I'm curious about that myself.
Yeah, where would you say you fall if you had to pick?
God, I don't know. I'm not really a philosophy person, but I would say I tend to look at things as from the perspective someone would have, or I tend to analyze things in the terms someone would use if they were a natural law theorist or a deontologist. But as far as the ultimate metaphysical backing for that, it's not something I really looked into. I just tend to take pretty much at face value the idea that we don't own each other and we don't have a right to beat each other up and take our stuff. I really would, if I had a parallel lifetime for a lot more reading and study to get into the history of philosophy. But I tend to just be pretty much up in the air about the fundamental nature of things. I guess I would agree with stuff I've read by Roderick on a eudaimonic basis for natural law, or a constitutive view of values. That is, we're better people, and we become more what we are when we behave in certain ways as opposed to other ways. And I think there's a certain element of that in Rand's writing when she writes about the things that are conducive to man as a capital letter and rather gender-centric abstraction.
Kind of sounds a little bit like virtue ethics too. I know Thomas Aquinas is a big proponent of that, but who was the first guy? Anybody remember?
Yeah, that's all Roderick does. He's a virtue ethicist and the whole eudaimos.
Well, I was heavily influenced years ago by Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics.
Yeah.
So speaking
And
of,
I think Rand is, or at least, well, I know it's been a long time since I've read anything by Rand on the subject, but Roderick was arguing that in her earlier days she was much more constitutive or eudaimonic, and that she tended to lean more towards just bare survival and narrowly construed self-interest in the vulgar economic man stereotype in her later days.
So speaking of philosophy, people in the chat room want to know your opinion of Stefan Molyneux.
Oh,
I'm sorry. What was that again?
Your opinion on Stefan Molyneux,
If you have any.
if you have one?
He's the guy that's got the radio program.
Free Domain Radio.
Yeah, he's Free Domain Radio.
Yeah, I tell the truth, I keep track of so many things. I remember he's been in a dispute with somebody or other about something or other, and I think it's from a relatively left-wing critique of market anarchism. But other than that, I can't remember the details.
Yeah, I don't even know the details myself. So, but Stefan's an interesting
I'm
guy.
ashamed. I'm really ashamed.
No, there's a lot of people to keep track of. Stefan's an all right guy, though.
Okay, we got another question for you. What's your opinion of Georgism? If you had to weigh in on that.
Oh, I don't remember even that coming up on the list.
Yeah, if anyone wants to Google it, I think I've written several blog posts years ago, like why I'm not a Georgist and almost thou persuadest me. I tend to think of the Georgists in the same terms I think of the distributists and agrarians and free creditors and all those people. They're definitely allies. They're good guys with their hearts in the right place. They see what the problem is, but they're a little off on the solution. I think of all of these things, and mutualism as making sort of larger community of petty bourgeois deviationists, I guess you'd call us. But I think most of the goals that Georgism wants to achieve could be achieved, first of all, by doing stuff that everyone, including the non-proviso Lockeans, agrees on, like nullifying absentee titles to vacant and unimproved land. And a lot of differential rent is actually just an uninternalized externality from taxpayer subsidies of one kind or another. If you did away with all the subsidies to sprawl and had a much larger number of smaller mixed-use communities, just as a matter of simple geometry, there would be much less differential rent between different parts of the community. And the overall monopoly rent accruing to land in general would be smaller without the title to vacant land. I think it would, in Ricardian terms, it would shift the margin of cultivation inward and make a lot of land that currently bears rent-free. I lean towards the mutualist occupancy and use standard, but to be honest, I become less clear on exactly what that would entail in practical terms as the years go by, and I see a much more porous boundary between that and Lockeanism. I guess just, from a purely practical standpoint, if there was a local Georgist politician that had a ballot initiative to abolish the sales tax and abolish property tax on buildings and improvement and shift all of that to land value, I would probably vote for that just as an intermediate measure towards dismantling state monopolies altogether, because it would clearly be an improvement, but I just don't see it as a desirable end state. There are better ways to achieve it. It's really a rambling answer.
That's all right. Kevin, we've had you on for a while, so thanks a lot for being on, and thanks everyone who gave you questions. Very interesting conversation. Hopefully we'll get you on some other time, maybe talk about healthcare and some other issues. So
yeah, I damn sure got a lot of opinions about that.
Well, we really appreciate you being on, too.
Well, I appreciate you inviting me. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks, Ryan. All right. So
Is this piss break time? Or?
It could be. I mean, we're getting on to wrapping up
Are
the
you
show.
still on the air?
Yeah, we're still on.
Okay. Okay.
It's okay.
Well,
No,
anyway,
boss-
thanks a lot for having me on.
I don't know. We're definitely glad to have you on. You're a welcome guest anytime. Let's see. Did we want to ask one wrap-up question, one final question? Anything like even
One final question.
A final
Where
final
can
one.
people read your stuff, learn more about you, websites, books,
Yeah,
whatever?
get a promotional in there.
Well, I write fairly regular commentary at c4ss.org, at Center for a Stateless Society, and there are a lot of other good writers there too. My previous work is a lot of blog posts back in the day when I was actually writing topical blog posts at Mutualist blog. That's mutualist.blogspot.com. And then all of my books that I've already mentioned, they're available either at Amazon or in free online versions. And the manuscript I'm currently working on is available, such as it is, online.
All right.
And there's a lot of stuff at the Freeman I've written also.
That's true. So
I think
he's everywhere.
also some stuff at the P2P Foundation blog.
Yep.
Can't think of anything right offhand. There's a lot of defunct publications and things I've just written one or two pieces for at various times. But
Okay, well, it's
just Google my name. You know, between me and the Dr. Kevin Carson and the musician and the gay porn star and the character in that lottery ticket.
Yeah, Google
movie,
Images search for you is interesting.
Yeah.
Turn Safe Surf search off, and then Google Images Kevin Carson. It's
Yeah,
exciting.
I keep getting pictures of George Monbiot. So
Yeah, and that for some reason that lady that interviewed me in Iran came
Oh, yeah.
up with Walter
Block.
Yeah.
Got to get a picture of George
I'm sure
Reisman
he
for
was
you
more
next
pissed
time.
off than I was.
He'll forget it. Don't worry.
he's going to start using your picture as an avatar now.
He says that's what I need to look like.
Yeah, I was thinking of just putting on a Guy Fawkes mask.
that would be something. All right. So this is that was Kevin Carson, and we are probably going to go to break, and we'll come back, and I think that's going to be good. Bile, do you want to say something? Say
We
something.
only have 10 minutes
We
left. It
only
doesn't
have
make
10
sense to go
minutes.
to break.
Do you think?
We only have 10 minutes. Why
We
would
only-
we go to break?
All right.
That would eat up like 40% of the time.
It's true, but do we need that time?
we
All
could
right.
we could fight on air about going to break.
We could.
I think that'd be
I'm the
very
one with the
exciting.
controls.
We can
I-
fight
I
on
only have-
air.
No, apparently I'm the one with the controls because I can just kick the headphone thing off the table and then nobody can hear anything.
Then the show
No,
just stops.
We can't hear anything. They can still hear.
Oh, everybody
stuff.
can hear everything. That's why I was looking at. I kicked the headphone thing off the table a little while ago, and I'm looking at Darian, and I'm like, "Say something."
Well,
talk.
I thought like someone else might have been. I thought Kevin was still talking, and
Yeah,
I was
he
like,
was.
"What?" I was like, "What?" Like, how am I supposed to react to someone taking out my hearing
All
on
right,
this show?
I'm going to have to download this again later and listen to what it was that we may have missed that he said.
So-
But either way,
I think he said piss
I'm
break.
still here.
He's
so-
still
Oh,
here.
you're still here.
Yeah, he's still here. So
Yeah,
we're-
what
I'm
was
talking
it I may have said that you may have missed? I don't know.
I don't even
It
know
was
what
right
is.
before you said piss break
Yeah.
because I plugged the headphones back in, and that's exactly what
That's
we heard.
all we heard when we came. I was like, oh,
Yeah, I hope it's okay to say piss break on the radio.
That's-
It better be
fine.
now. I think we're verging on like 9, maybe 10 times saying piss break.
We've said
it's
worse
fine.
things.
Yeah, we've said
This is
far worse.
internet
Oh,
radio,
yeah.
and it's only syndicated on Liberty Radio Network, so we won't get the complaint emails or anything
Yeah.
like that.
It's all the only people that pick us up are pirate radio.
yeah.
Arr,
And we do love our
arr.
pirate
7
radio
words you
people.
can't say on television.
Yes.
That's a good time.
We're not
too.
going to say it on the radio either, but we do love all of our pirate people and keep extending it, keep putting us on the air. We enjoy all.
I
of it.
really want to get a pickup from like a shortwave pirate person.
That'd
I
be
want somebody
cool,
like blasting us off the ionosphere, going to China.
Why
like-
don't you do it?
Because honestly, if I did that in my neighborhood and I sunk that much electricity, they'd raid my house because they thought I was growing weed. Like it's a lot of electricity.
Maybe you can
I need
convince
all
like,
of it.
Maybe you
All
can-
the electricity.
What is it? Who are the two big ones? The Chinese and the
CRI, Chinese Radio International, and Radio Havana.
yeah. You need to convince them to carry our program.
They probably would. Probably because
They'll be
they're
like-
looking for programming supply. But I need to meet some really shady dudes in order to be able to do that.
We'll just give
We'll
them
get on
some
it.
Is your
BS
site
story.
blocked?
What was that?
Is your site blocked in China?
I'm not sure.
I know my personal blog is. I don't know if the show's site is. I'd have to check.
We'll work on that.
We'll try to get it.
Yeah.
Well,
blocked.
I got to check and see if mine is. If it's not, I'll ask them what the hell's wrong.
Yeah,
I know.
I'm not working
What am I
hard
doing?
enough.
I found out that was it lysanderspooner.org is blocked over there, and well, so that's something. All right, Kevin.
How about the blog Kim Jong Il looking at things? Is that blocked?
that might be blocked just in North Korea. All right,
Okay.
we can let you go.
I
Anything
really
else you want to
gotta-
stay?
do
What do you
gotta
want to
go
do?
Take a leak. So
Yeah. All right. So yes.
We'll see you later.
Thanks again for having me, guys.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot for being on.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.
All right. That was Kevin Carson signing off from thinkingliberty.net. So thank you all for listening. If you didn't catch that, we have our archives, which Bile spends a lot of work on.
I heard
Putting up-
Darian does that. That's
I
what
heard Darian does
That's what
everything.
the internet's
for the
told
show.
me. That's what Kim Jong Il told me.
This is Darian's show. We're all just guests here.
Well, it originally was just Darian's
It's
show.
true.
But then we took control over the means of production, or at least
Exactly.
I took control. Over the
I was like, please, Bile, take control of the means of production. This other guy sucks, and I don't want to learn this.
Yeah, actually, Bile the capitalist owns all the means of production. We
That's
just kind of
true.
work for
Does
him.
that mean I'm the master?
Yeah, you're the master. We're the slaves.
Awesome.
So you're the last dragon. That's what we're going to call it. You're the master. So
Actually, I do have a lot of capital
Show
built
enough.
up here.
Show enough.
yeah.
That is such a great movie.
That is a
I haven't
fantastic
watched it
movie.
yet.
The Last Dragon.
The Last Dragon.
You know,
I
he was at
seen this.
that
Bruce Leroy?
alternative Comic Con the other year. Yeah, he apparently he shows up at these things.
The Last Dragon.
Yeah, the guy who stars as the Last Dragon.
Not Show Enough.
No, not shown off.
I would rather meet Show Enough.
I'm not sure if he's even alive.
Well, I'd rather meet him. Even his dead corpse would
Even his
probably
dead
be better than-
corpse.
Yeah, I didn't
Dig him up.
I didn't realize the
Dig 'em
guy
up.
who played Bruce Leroy was gay. But then when we met,
Why
him,
would you know that?
because apparently it was a bigger thing that he came out and he
Oh.
let people know.
You
So,
you weren't disappointed that your gaydar wasn't that strong.
I never actually got to meet him, but somebody else got to meet him and like, oh, now they know. They think he was hit on.
Oh,
Yeah. All right.
all right.
Wow, we actually got all three of the property clauses from different people in the chat room. So Zach Fix screwed it up. He said property is thet when he started off. But we actually got all three of them. And then we got an additional property is sexy. I don't recall that one, but
Property is property is a thetan.
yep.
It's an operating thetan. Or maybe it's a holiday in Vietnam. I don't know.
How about green tea? What is that?
Green tea?
Yeah,
type
it's
of
not
tea.
property.
Oh yeah.
Dun-dun-dun.
The pun gas strikes again.
I hate this show.
On that note, I think it's about time to wrap this up.
Well,
We got 5
No, we
minutes,
got
technically.
5 minutes.
We got like 4 whole minutes now.
We can
so.
fill that up with song, not music.
I only
song.
Well, sing.
Is it going to be you
I've-
singing?
I've only got 2 minutes and 51 seconds worth of music to play.
All right.
Wow.
so-
You're just trying to bail out of this.
I
Like,
know.
Tennyson wanted to take a break. Biles like, no.
Well, I said
Why?
take a break because Darian said to take a break. I was like, all right, fine. Maybe
Well, we
we're
were
gonna
supposed to
this
take a break like 30 minutes ago,
Yeah, well,
and you
we-
just kept rambling and rambling and rambling.
We just
4
keep on
minutes
going.
of puns, please. Wow.
It's like I would like
Go.
to order 4 minutes of puns from you, please. I'm pointing towards Bosco.
Do you know there's a World Pun Championship, by the way? And there is a World Pun Champion.
Really?
That is
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
Those people
They-
need to be.
They get
Put
a
on their own
topic,
planet.
right? And one guy has to come up with a pun, and then judges vote on it, and another guy has to come up with a pun. Same topic, right? And then I think it's like whoever loses so many points has to leave.
Yeah, see, I made 10 entries to that, and I was sure I was win, but no pun intended.
Oh, yes, I love that one. That one's awesome.
You set me up for that.
I know, and you knocked it down. That was
That's-
fantastic.
That was
That's
good.
how we do it.
Yeah. Tech news?
Tech
Yeah,
news?
what tech news we got?
We had Kevin Carson on. That's tech news.
No, it's not. That is Kevin Carson news.
Oh, some people were asking, or what did they say? Tell Kevin to get Facebook or G Plus or something.
I mean, I tried to
So-
get him on G Plus. I told him that you need to get on that, and I don't know if he's into the social
Well,
networking
Google
thing
will
just
ban
yet.
him because it's really Brad.
It's going to be Brad duplicate. The one tech news thing that I'd probably put in is that K. Eric Drexler has a new book coming out probably next year. It's called Radical Abundance. And I'm glad that he's got another book coming out.
Radical Abundance.
Yes, Radical Abundance. Not cowabunga, not radical, not anything else.
Tubular abundance.
Yeah, that too.
Who is this guy? Why should I be interested?
All right, K. Eric Drexler is the father of nanotechnology, the one who wrote nanosystems and wrote Engines of Creation back in the 1980s. Yes, the Grey Goo. He is the originator of all of those
And
ideas.
nanopants?
Nanopants came later. These are the things that he criticizes, that they took the term nanotechnology from meaning molecular nanotechnology, atomically precise molecular manufacturing, to meaning something like, anything that has to do with on the nanoscale, like
Nano Battletoads.
like nanopants, nano Battletoads, or
Nano
whatever.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Nano paint or whatever comes up there. All that stuff.
Nano.
It perverted the term nanotechnology. And so he's come up, he has a new book coming out, Radical
Did
Abundance.
it nano pervert it?
Maybe. Our friend Perry, who's been on the show a couple times, he laments the book is coming out. He'd rather, he was doing research, and I kind of agree, but I'm still looking forward to a book. So that would be good.
Yay, books.
Yeah, books are cool, man.
Okie dokie. On that note, yay, books. Do you want to take us out there, Darian, with some sort of outro?
Some sort of outro. I don't know if I'm in an outro kind of mood today. I might be all outroed out. But this has been another quality production
with a K.
of no.
Yeah,
that's not how you spell quality.
Quality with a K. That's how we spell quality, because
You-
we do not mean it in the classical
You
sense.
are no longer allowed to be here. Give me your anarchist badge and your gun.
And you're good.
And your bomb. Shave off your beard.
Okay, so thanks for listening to another fantastic, bombastic production of Thinking Liberty. You can catch all the archives at thinkingliberty.net. We're on every Tuesday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. So stay with us. Live free.
Si ves algo, di algo.
She visits me when I am weak, when I have no place to run. She always knows when I have no one, and then she comes to torture me. She visits me when I'm asleep, when I have no place to hide. She always knows when I have someone, and then she comes to tempt me. She visits me from the corners of the past. She won't let go of my spirit yet. She comes to haunt me. From the corners of the past, she won't let go of my spirit yet. She comes to haunt me. She yes, it's me.